Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf by Thomas Cookson, published on the 29th of the 1st, 06. I'd say that of all the old Doctor Who episodes, this is the one of the strongest similarities to the new series. The team of the 7th Doctor and Ace, a teenager from the 1980s, was not so different to the current form of the team of the 9th Doctor and his companion Rose, a doctor with a grumpy disposition and a mysterious and dark past, accompanied by an urban streetwise companion with an explored family background. Then you've got the frequent situations that the Doctor and Ace face in this episode, the setting of World War II where people are disillusioned of hopes for the future, the empty child, where the dead are rising in evil form, the unquiet dead, demonic creatures chase the characters who find sanctuary in a church, Father's Day, and where history is being rewritten and phrases are newly appearing in ancient hieroglyphics. Bad Wolf. Doctor, reading the hieroglyphics. We hope to return to the North Way, but the dark curse follows our dragon ship. The wolves of Fenric shall return for their treasure, and then shall the dark evil rule eternally. As for a lot of high-aiming old Doctor Who stories, the situation is so complex and surreal that as a viewer you're initially unsure whether or not you're going to be satisfied with this one. But as it happens, it's one Doctor Who story I hired from the library, watched it a few times in a week, and then had to return it. And now months later it still resonated quite a strong staying power that I can't quite describe. The main strength of the episode is its very tangible atmosphere and sense of subversion in the air. We are shown images of sunken Viking ships at the seabed with their bows raised in phallic fashion, seeming to project the possessive evil essence of the dead into the sea mist above. When we see teenage girls down on the beach, dipping into the abnormally warm water, we know danger is afoot for them. There's also some wonderful chrono choice shots of outdoor action, complemented by a downpour of rain, which adds so much to the feeling of contamination and being under duress. These factors caught me unaware since 1986 had seen Doctor Who change its style so that it would be filmed in its entirety in video format as opposed to having outdoor scenes shot in grainy film as was done previously. Given many of the episodes I had seen of that era, I felt the video format episodes of Doctor Who were ones that solely lacked atmosphere or edge, but this is one episode that proved me completely wrong. Seeds of Doom is another. The Haemivores are wonderful villains with pretty good makeup effects and are so well presented by script and visuals that they do feel a tangible presence. You can sense their heat and magnetism hypnotizing and drawing people towards them to their deaths in a way I couldn't say about many other Doctor Who stories which involved hypnotism. The fact that they're indestructible, can physically burn through and melt any barriers in their way only adds to the menace. The fight scenes may frequently be over too soon, but they are actually very well choreographed, another rare achievement for the series, even if it's in its current revival form, and the Haemivores remain relentless throughout, as with a lot of Doctor Who episodes it shows that death is a respecter of no one. Now when we get to the issue of where the Haemivores actually come from, then the story gets rather confusing and hard to pin down. The Doctor has clearly encountered the Haemivores before. He talks of the Haemivores being an ancient evil, older than the universe itself, and then contradicts this by talking of the Haemivores being the evolutionary future descendants of the human race who have somehow come back to this time. One thing the Doctor seems to be referring to in vague terms could be a possible explanation for how both statements can be true. It concerns a scientific theory about the beginning and end of the universe, which we actually see in the title sequence, that as the Big Bang saw the creation of all matter in the universe and the constant momentum and expansion of galaxies ever since then, there will come a time of the Big Crunch where the expansion will come to a stop and all matter will be pulled back towards each other by gravity and resultantly towards the primary center of the universe in collision. There is then a theory that as the universe goes into reverse motion, so too will time, a theory exploited in the Red Dwarf episode Backwards, and there follows a theory that the collision climax of the Big Crunch will lead to another Big Bang starting the cycle again, meaning of course that the universe has no beginning or end but exists on a perpetual loop that may have gone on several billion times already, and that maybe even the same people and events will happen exactly the same way again and again. Of course that's taking the theory to its wildest degree. So if the Haemivores are the evolutionary descendants of man, but they also have found a way to exist outside of time, then it is possible that they could outlive the loop to the recreation of the universe and exist in this time. So let's move on to the themes of the episode. Taking place in the final year of World War II, the episode is very much about the villagers of this British town and their attitudes to the war. Some attitudes of patriotism, some attitudes of blind patriotism, and some of disillusionment and mourning. The episode has moments of boldly criticising the actions and attitudes of the British military during the war. The bombing of Germany was supposed to be strategic precision bombings of German factories, but 99% of the bombs were simply dumped at random, hitting civilian areas. In the firestorm bombing of Dresden, there were more civilian deaths than in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a fact that is conveniently overshadowed by the greater atrocities of the Nazis, so it gets dismissed often as a necessary evil, but not here. The episode also comments on the beginnings of the distrust between the Western forces and the Russians, in which a band of Russian spies come to the base, hearing reports of the alleged British plan to use biological weapons against Russia, and finding out that they were in fact right. Fitting that this should be shown in 1989, the year when the wall finally came down. The episode does this by stressing that the herbivores, like vampires, are repelled by artifacts of religious faith, but the carrier of the protection must possess unshakable faith in order for it to work, and frequently protected people die because they have lost faith in these war times. There's also the character of Commander Millington, Alfred Lynch, the head of the British soldiers here, who plans to use the weapon against the Russians out of his own intolerance and paranoia. He has a command office which is an exact replica of a Nazi general's office, the plan being to learn to think like the enemy and counteract them, but which hints metaphorically at how in many ways he is no better than the Nazis himself. Ace. And the halftime score: Perivale, 600 million, rest of the universe, 0. The centre of the episode's themes, of course, is Ace. Whilst the Doctor here maintains an introverted and mysterious presence, Ace comes to the fore of irrepressible personality. Rather like Rose in the new series, Ace finds herself socialising with ease with the people around her, mingling with a pair of rebellious teenage girls who are evacuees and are miserable at having to live with a furiously puritanical guardian who keeps Bible thumping to them and warning them of the eternal damnation that will await them for their immodesty, and they affectionately call her the old bag when she's out of earshot. Ace speaks up well for the downtrodden but submissive women of the time, and surprises a lot of people with her in-development intelligence, which is remarkable for her age and gender, given the education system of the past, and she talks of the future time that she comes from, to the astonishment of the soldiers and villagers who have lost faith, and who believe that there is no future for Britain. You must remember that a lot of people at the time thought that the 2 world wars were actually an omen prophesizing the coming of Judgment Day. Ace also shows her developing maturity by using her sexual prowess to distract soldiers, while the Doctor makes these discreet moves, and she manages to discover some surprising and unsavoury facts about her family history here. These are all things that Rose has done in the new series, and indeed it is nice that the new series has actually picked up thematically where the old series left off. So in hindsight, how does Sophie Aldred as Ace fare as a prototype for Rose? Well, I must say that Sophie does struggle with the big, loud, dramatic scenes in a way that Billie Piper certainly didn't. Then again, to compete with Billie Piper is no easy feat, but it's hard to care about her poignant family revelations when she shouts so melodramatically about them. Overall, though, Sophie Aldred and the writers have managed to successfully achieve an endearing character in Ace, and that doesn't change. For the same reasons as Rose in the new series, we care about Ace as a personable, well-meaning, if occasionally belligerent character who is often the victim of snobbery and misjudgment because of her council estate background and her slang and unladylike manner, which he so much scorned whenever the Doctor takes her to the past, to more patriarchal times, and it's nice to see the character developing before our eyes, and making quite a lot of confessions about herself, particularly her great Generation X in a nutshell line: "Sometimes I travel so fast I don't even exist." If I have any big complaint, it's that towards the second half of the story, little bits of details and plot development become rather contrived, and there's a few action movie one-liners that don't work. The conclusion is fairly confusing and relates to continuity to the season 24 episode Dragonfire, which I haven't yet seen, and I'm in no hurry to see either, given how many fans have described season 24 as the worst Doctor Who season ever. But other than that, I was most impressed with this one, very entertaining and carries a lot of power and punch. I recommend picking up the DVD version with extras, including some charming convention footage and deleted scenes.